From the deepest, darkest recesses of Dangerous Nerds headquarters, Keith Moncrief and Gerry Kissel.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Pop Culture Minefield. That's Keith down there.
And that's Gerry.
And we're here to talk about some nerd stuff with our friend, Master General Mikey Sutton. Hey, Mikey.
Hello there. Great being on your show today. Thank you for inviting me.
Of course. We invite all of our friends because it's free.
Yep.
Yeah, it fills up airtime, right?
Yeah. So before the show, we were chatting, and Mikey was about to lay down some stuff on us about wanting to be a comic artist. So let's start with that. Let's hear about that.
Sure. Decades before I was known for being a writer, I really wanted to draw. I mean, even before I got into comic books, I was drawing cars when I was a kid, and I take pictures of cars and try and copy them, and it's very popular in grade school for that. Like, whoa, he can draw cars, and a lot of kids, they love how I drew flames on the cars. And
were you into cartoons?
Oh God, yeah. You mean the magazine cartoons? I love that magazine.
Yes. I was too, big time. I used to do those.
Who are those two guys? I can't remember their names.
I always forget. I don't remember either.
But yeah, and Big Daddy Roth was a favorite artist of mine back then.
It's just really good stuff.
Love that stuff, and so yeah, I would buy that. I would copy the the cars in there, and that I just realized that may have been my first comic book. I wasn't even a comic book reader back then.
Yeah, well, it's funny. I was just talking about this the other day that my first real comic book that I paid attention to and knew all the artists was Mad Magazine.
Wow.
Yeah.
I read Marvel, DC. I read Charlton Comics, Gold Key. I loved comic books, but I didn't know any artists in that field. The only artists I knew were Mort Drucker, Don. I forgot his last name. That worked at Mad Magazine. Don Martin.
Yeah.
Don Martin. Yeah.
And I knew those at a young age, and I was imitating Mort Drucker and Don. I would draw their characters. I didn't know who drew Spy versus Spy, but I love Spy versus and Sergio Argoni.
Yeah.
I knew who he was as a kid.
Mad Magazine taught me how to draw Mr. Spock.
Yeah, I think I
Leonard
didn't
Nimoy.
start reading Mad until maybe when I was 12 years old or so. Cartoons was really the beginning for me. I think 74, 75 maybe.
Yeah, it was right in that area for me too. And
I was buying Hot Wheels cars too, and anything with cars, like Road and Track magazine, I'd buy that.
Yeah, and
I love cars.
It was just it was the way to go, and I love those car drawings too. But come 1977, I shifted because of Star Wars, and I went to spaceship.
That perfect segue, because check this out. I saw Star Wars on opening day. I was very lucky because Sacramento, California was one of the few states that had it on opening day. People don't realize when Star Wars first came out, not all theaters had it.
Nope. I had to go to DC.
Yeah, they thought it was going to bomb, and they're like, so only a handful of theaters had it. So my sister's boyfriend at the time was working at the Century Theater in Sacramento, California. And he said, hey, I'm going to get you guys into Star Wars for free. And I'm like, what the hell is Star Wars? I had no idea what it was. I mean, I know there are trailers that came out. I don't remember seeing them. I just remember going into that theater, not knowing what to expect. I mean, totally cold. And I'll never forget walking outside the theater and looking at the skies. It was dark out, looking at the stars, and just totally, my mind was blown. I mean, it was a life-changing moment.
Yep.
Yeah.
Same here.
My brother-in-law at the time showed me the Star Wars comic book, but I was like, yeah, okay, this is nice, but it's not the movie, right? It's just like illustrations and everything. It wasn't until a year later in '78, I was watching this TV show called Special Edition.
Mm.
It was hosted by Barbara Feldon of Get Smart.
I think this is actually common. That a lot of nerds watch shows like that because
Exactly, yeah.
we look for
Yeah.
clips and snippets from the shit
Mhm.
that we wanted to see.
That's the reason why Entertainment Tonight was so big.
So,
Yeah.
and it has Stan Lee in this episode. I mean, I didn't know who he was. But they had footage of the Marvel cartoons, which I never saw, like the Hulk. It had Spider-Man. I'm like, what is this? You know, and it reminded me of Star Wars because it was so weird and you know, kind of like alien and stuff, and just a lot of colors and excitement. So of course, anything that reminded me of Star Wars, I was into, right? And so they started showing like comic book panels. They showed Doctor Doom and all these things. I'm like, what is this? And my brother-in-law said, oh, those are Marvel comics. He never read Marvel comics before. I said, no, I haven't. And then they showed they showed Shang-Chi in bed with a girl. I'm like, okay, I gotta get the comic books now. Like, there's this stuff in there. I was like 9 years old. I hadn't even gotten my birthday yet. And so the next day, my brother-in-law went to Tower Books, and he bought me the Origins of Marvel Comics.
Mm.
And he goes, here, you wanted to get into comic books, read this. And that I was sick that morning that I read it, and I remember just lying on the couch. I was watching I Love Lucy, and dude, I started reading comic books with the origins of the Fantastic Four, Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, Thor, and the Hulk. That's how I started.
That's
And
interesting.
yeah, and that book, The Silver Surfer, was in there too. So my introduction to comics was Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, and Steve Ditko. That's how I started.
Wow.
I mean, what a way to get yourself into this huge world of comics.
Because
Right.
my grandfather got me started reading comics. My grandfather was a very, very secretive. He's a World War I veteran, and he had a stash of comics that he always kept, and he would buy new ones. And like I remember when a new Batman would come out, he would buy it, Superman. And so I used to like read them in his room. I'd go in there and lay down in his bed and pull his stash of not Playboys, friggin' comic books. And I think one of my favorites was from the '50s, was where we got to see the first story in one of the annuals about the Kryptonian Twin City that was taken by Brainiac.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to read that, thanks to my grandpa. And
that's the Battle City of Kandor.
yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes.
Yeah.
And it was the first time I'd ever seen that story, and it was in an annual, one of the thicker comic books. And my grandpa used to have like the coolest stuff, and after he passed away, my grandma would still buy comics and put them into the same spot so all the kids could go there to read. And that was where I read the first Man-Bat story with Langstrom.
Oh, nice! Wow, that's awesome.
It was at my grandmother's, and she fed that passion for nerdism.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, and the first comic books I ever bought, like 2 months after that, was in June '78. My mom took me to the BX at McClellan Air Force Base in Sacramento. And I'll never forget digging through my first comics, and I saw Master Kung Fu, and I'm like, okay, I gotta get that sex scene in there, or maybe it's in there, and I don't know. But I picked that up. I picked up Spectacular Spider-Man. It was the first time Frank Miller drew Daredevil, and it's a complete unknown back then. And that same summer, I picked up Micronauts, #1 with Michael Golden.
Yes.
John Byrne X-Men. It had
Mhm.
Magneto in it. I can't remember what issue number it was, but it had Magneto in it. See, Marvel Team. I have a couple of other books. It was mostly Marvel because of that special edition show had was on Marvel Comics.
Mhm.
I was looking at the art of these books, like Frank Miller, John Byrne, Kirby, and I'm like, I want to draw like these superheroes. So I started drawing my own little comic books that on notebook paper, and I would do all the panels and everything, and I was writing without realizing what writing was, because I
Yeah.
was telling stories, but it was such an innocent time back then. I just like I'm drawing pictures with like these with dialogue and word balloons and everything, and I was so mesmerized by the art of these very creative people, and I wanted to draw like them. Like I tried to draw like Kirby. Oh my god, it was embarrassingly bad. Kirby is a force of nature. I don't know how Kirby draws like Kirby. Like how can you draw like that?
He, because I talked with Graham about this,
Yeah.
that his anatomy wasn't always spot on,
Yeah.
but his art was so dynamic. It had so
It
much
was.
Mhm.
energy and it
Yep.
pulled you in. And he would create alien worlds that just I would stare at his artwork. I think one of my favorite Kirby books is the 2001: A Space Odyssey giant
Oh god, yeah. Yep.
comic. I bought that at a local Rite Aid in Fredericksburg, Virginia, as a kid, and I'm like, oh my god!
Well, yeah. I mean, it's also like a treasury edition, right? Like oversized artwork, the way it's supposed to be seen. It's like IMAX to comics. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
You're looking at it at the size that it was actually probably drawn. At the 11
Yeah,
by
exactly.
17.
It's humongous
You know,
vision he had.
and because like when I draw, the comic books I work in, and I got this from other artists that I'm friends with. I draw and color everything. Well, I color at 400 DPI, but when I draw at 600 DPI. And then when it reduces down to 300, it just looks amazing and clean.
You know what? I could never draw with a pencil. I always used a pen. I just didn't like how it looked with pencil. I just never, and I hated the smell of pencils. It just reminded me of homework. Is why.
Ah.
I couldn't stand it. So imagine how much paper I wasted not being able to erase anything, right? So I was going through all this sheets and sheets of paper, just drawing all the time, but as I got older, I had a frustrating time trying to draw women. They look horrible. They look like men, and my friends loved my art, but when I drew women, they just laugh at it, like, "Oh God, this looks terrible." I said, "No, I know it looks awful." And what I realized is that what I could not draw, I could write. And I was reading a lot of magazines at the time. Starlog magazine, we all read that.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. I
Famous
grew up on that.
magazine. And I got better and better with my writing, and I'm like, you know what? Maybe writing is for me and not illustrating. It was really confusing time for me because I won awards in art when I was in grade school, but my art was very limited. I mean, I was very good at what I did, but what I couldn't do was horrible. I mean, it's like a vocalist with a limited singing range. But unfortunately, when you're drawing comic books, you can't say, "Okay, I can draw everything except for the girls." You know what I mean? You'll have to be able to draw everything, and so I was like, "This is not working out for me." Um, and you mentioned, in a private conversation about Roger Ebert. It was Siskel and Ebert watching them that I discovered film criticism.
Yeah,
And
same here. Same here.
yeah, and
But
yeah, Jay,
Well, hold on. I got to correct myself. I'm a
Uh-huh.
big fan of Gene Shalit. So,
Oh, okay, yeah, from the Today Show, right?
because Gene Shalit was another one that I would watch in the mornings to
Yeah.
catch any glimpse of any interesting nerdy thing.
Well, what really blew me away was that when I didn't know initially that Siskel and Eve were writing for newspapers. When I discovered they're actually writing this stuff, it blew my mind. I'm like, what? You make a living out of this? you know, you're writing about movies and like that's incredible. Um, so those two inspired me to become a film critic, and my first review was Chariots of Fire in 1981. And it's funny because uh, 2006, I believe, I was reunited with a buddy of mine from grade school who remembers that Chariots of Fire review I wrote. I gave it to him. He lost it ages ago, but he still remembered it. And I said, dude, that was ground zero. That was the first review I ever wrote. you know? And as the years went on, I just gave up illustrating. I said, nope, writing is the path for me. When I got to the Philippines, I discovered a record music reviewer named Goldwyn Morales Azul, legendary music critic over there. He got me into new wave and punk rock and alternative music in the 80s, but he also inspired me as a writer. And 1987, I was only 18. He published my first reviews, which was Ferris Bueller's Day Off and Maximum Overdrive, and I still have the issues. And that set me on the path that has led me to where I am today. Working in the industry and kind of moving my way upward. In the late 80s, I got a job with Amazing Heroes magazine. I was writing comic book reviews for them. And then in the 90s, I wrote for a magazine I'm sure you're familiar with, Cinema Fantastique.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I wrote for them, and
That means at some point or another, Keith and I have read your shit.
Yeah, probably. It's
No,
funny.
it's a guarantee.
Yeah, I met Mark Waid in 2015, I believe. 2014, I met Mark Waid, and he was the editor of Amazing Heroes before I joined the staff. And I told him, I said, Mark, you almost became my boss. It just blows my mind because he left like a year before I joined. And if I had written to them like a year earlier,
You would
I'm
have worked
pretty
for him.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mark Waid. How cool would that be, right?
Yeah.
And he asked me my name. He goes, "I remember you. I remember your writing." And I just like, wow, Mark Waid remembers me. Because I wrote long articles for Amazing Heroes back then. They didn't pay hardly anything, like $10 an article. It was nothing, But damn, it was cool going to a comic book store, picking up Amazing Heroes, and seeing your work in there in print. I mean,
Right.
what a thrill that was, and especially since as a teenager I read Amazing Heroes and the Fantastic, so to be able to write for them was an incredible thrill. And I thought, life couldn't get any bigger than this. Oh, little did I know.
It just keeps getting bigger.
It is, and I tell you, if you keep pursuing something, just don't give up on it, because you'll never know where life will take you. And
Well, especially when you have a stroke.
yeah, well, that was a life-changing moment. And 2018, I did not see it coming, dude, at all.
And, because you and I have talked about this privately,
Yeah,
so we don't have to go into
yeah,
a lot of detail. But what I do want to go into is
uh-huh,
how that shifted your paradigm.
sure. Well, I tell you, it made me look at life in a totally different way. At the time, I was very complacent with my own health. I was overeating. I was not exercising whatsoever, um, and just being careless about everything. I didn't really care about my own, health or anything like that. And it made me realize that I need to stop procrastinating. And if I have any goals or ambitions to work on it now, don't put them off because there might not be a tomorrow. And
Amen to
what
that.
happened? What happened that day was I remember waking up that day feeling kind of lethargic that day. I mean, which is not uncommon for me back in those days, but that day I felt really different. I couldn't explain what I was feeling, but I was like really dehydrated. That was the main issue I was going through. I was like, man, why do I feel so dehydrated today? I remember I turned my AC on. I talked to a close friend of mine on the phone, and I started feeling a little dizzy. And I was like, huh. But I wasn't scared or anything. I wasn't thinking, oh shit, something bad's gonna happen. I just wasn't that way. I just remember lying on the bed. I was reading, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get something to eat. When I got up, all of a sudden I couldn't feel my legs, and I came crashing down. And
Wow.
I almost hit my head on the cabinet next to my bed, but I had my arm out, and I put my hand down on the ground so I wouldn't hit my head on the cabinet. But my hand couldn't hold my weight, and eventually I had to put my head down. And I remember like lying on the floor, just staring at the ceiling. And so I grabbed my phone and I said, okay, I'm gonna. My mom was at her doctor's appointment. There was nobody home, just me. And so, okay, I wonder what this is, Maybe I'm just like, because, I was diabetic. I figured maybe I haven't had anything to eat that day or something, so I'm just feeling kind of weak. So my first thought was to call her, but she wasn't picking up the phone, and I tried calling a friend, because I couldn't find her doctor's number. To get her doctor's number from the internet, so I can call him, let her know that hey, come home. I'm not feeling too well. While I was dialing, okay, I called him up. He didn't pick up. While I was trying to leave a voicemail for him, the phone fell underneath the fan. So he heard my message, but it sounded totally garbled. I found out later, and I couldn't move my hands, so there was no way I could get the phone. I could move my right hand, but I could not enough for me to move my body and reach and get the phone underneath the fan. So I just lay there for about 3 hours, dude. 3 hours
Wow.
and the whole time I was thinking, I'm gonna die. I'm gonna die on the sucking floor. And I was thinking, what can I do to get anybody's attention? I was thinking, my landline was on the floor, but I never plugged my landline in. In order for me to do that, I had to get up, and I couldn't get up. So there was a CD on the floor. I was thinking, okay, worst case scenario, if my mom doesn't come home on time, I'm going to take this CD and I'm going to throw it out the window. And hopefully the glass will break and somebody will be like, hey, anything going on in there? Because I tried screaming for help and no one could hear me, you know. She finally came home 3 hours later. I heard a door open up. I was screaming for her, and she saw me on the floor, and she called 911. So, 911 comes over. They have to get two other medics to carry me because I was so heavy. I was 380 pounds.
Wow.
And I was really, really overweight. Um, so they got me and they asked me, "Do you have any kind of guess as what just happened here?" And I said, "I think I had a stroke." Because my doctor had warned me about this before, but I never took it seriously. I was like, yeah,
Mhm.
whatever. I know. You want me to get healthier? Yeah, well, I just didn't take it seriously, and I was in the so they took me to emergency right away, and yeah, they did they scanned my brain. They said I had a hemorrhagic stroke, and my blood pressure was extremely high. I can't remember the exact numbers anymore, but it was like lethal. And what I'll never forget was this because the hospital was a Catholic hospital. So this lady came to me and she said that you need to call. Well, we need to have somebody call your family or other members of your family because I don't think you're going to survive tonight.
Mm.
And we can get a priest here to pray for you and do all the last rites and everything. And I'm like thinking, oh my God, is this it? I mean, I'm already that they can't save me, you know. And she wasn't a doctor or anything. I have since nicknamed her the Lady of Death.
The Lady of Death. Lady with
Yeah,
terrible news and timing.
and then the Grim Reaper shows up, right? And I'm like, hey, look, I never saw her again. That was the only time I ever saw her, but I'll never forget it. And then, I was like, I was in a state of disbelief. I was like, is this it? I worked all my life and I die on the floor and I'm
Yeah, this is one of those moments where we need Chris Farley to do the
yeah.
interview and go, remember that time when you had the stroke and you were in the hospital and that lady told you were going to die? Do you remember that? You remember that?
Yeah. And so the doctor came to me and said, okay, your blood pressure is really, really high. And I looked and I could turn my head behind me and I saw the monitor and I saw how high it was. And he goes, that has to go down. And they're feeding me medication intravenously. And they said, we're going to keep looking at that. If it gets any higher, you could fall into a coma and die. And he goes, whatever you do, don't fall asleep because you might not wake up. Stay awake. Because I know how tired you are, but stay awake. And so, oh my God, I'm sitting there. And again, I'm reminded, I was just talking to you before the conversation about the blood testing and the thing. Because that's what I was thinking of, right? Then I'm looking at the blood pressure monitor, like the blood testing and the thing,
Right.
and I'm seeing if it's going up or down, and all of a sudden, not sudden, like a half hour later, I noticed that it's gradually going down, my blood pressure, and I think like 3 or 4 hours later, it came down to a very reasonable
Did they
level.
give you Coumadin or anything like that as a blood thinner to help?
I don't remember now. I remember I had IV stuff on me and everything, and much of that is a blur, except for the fact that I kept staring at the blood pressure monitor. And when it came down to reasonable level, there was like applause in my room.
I
Okay, buddy,
bet.
you're not out of the woodwork yet, but
Hercules.
yeah, but this is a good sign. And I never saw the Lady of Death again. She was
Yeah, fuck
like,
that lady.
yeah, I know, right? I know what the heck. The Grim Reaper shows up, like so.
That's a short segue story all its own where you hunt that lady down and then like
Yeah, I know,
knock on
right?
her door and pull a Stewie from Family Guy when he goes to Will Ferrell's house, climbs the ladder, slaps him and goes, It's not funny.
Well, it's funny because I was thinking of the Infinity War with the snap and everything. I just got snapped. You know what I mean? Like, Mr. Stark, I don't feel so good, you know? Like, am I going to see Endgame? Am I going to live to see Endgame? I mean, these are the thoughts like going through,
Oh,
like a nerd.
I've had those too. When I got hospitalized
Yeah,
before I left Phoenix,
yeah.
and they were just coming in being realistic with me, and they thought I wasn't taking it seriously, and I said, no, I'm going out laughing. If I'm going to
Yeah.
die, I'm going to go and say something really retarded before I die, just to make everybody laugh, and then wonder, did he really just die? You know.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned, like, cracking jokes and everything because after that night, I became kind of popular around the hospital because I would not stop with the one-liners. I don't know
Oh
where it
God.
came from, but I felt like Hawkeye Pearson Nash. I mean, I just wouldn't stop with a joke. I constantly joking around the whole time.
It helps with stress.
It does. It just to get my mind off, not being able to move my hands.
Now, did
I
you have
could.
to go through a lot of therapy?
Yes, tons of therapy.
How long did it
Um,
take for you to start really seeing improvement?
my God, you know, I was able to move my hands in a couple of days, but my grip was not very strong. I couldn't get up. I didn't get up from the bed until like a week and a half later, and but I had like people like holding me up. It was
Wow.
a struggle, and what really scared me was I don't think I could write again because I couldn't really move my hands,
It's
and that was a nightmare.
it's such a weird thing too, because going back to how you felt that day
Yeah.
reminds me of two people. One, my brother Michael, when I lost him,
Uh huh.
we had learned that that we had a chance of saving him from his cancer,
Uh huh.
and but of course, he had a side condition that occurred,
Mhm.
and it
Mhm.
caused him to hemorrhage blood, and
Mhm.
he didn't want to be trouble to anybody, so he stayed home
Mhm.
and threw up copious amounts of blood.
Oh
And
man.
by the time my sister came home, it was 9 hours.
Oh
And
man.
if it had been caught early, he'd still be alive.
Yeah.
Odds are he'd still be alive. But he let 9 hours go by because he didn't want to trouble anybody. And
Oh
that night,
man.
he died at 3 o'clock in the morning from complete organ failure.
That's
And
most.
then you also look at like John Alvin, the movie poster artist. He was a friend
Yeah.
of Gerry's and mine from Blade Zone, and
Mhm.
he had gone to the gym and done his little workout. Came home, told his wife, "This is very intimate information. I don't think this has ever been shared publicly.
Uh huh.
I hope she's not mad at me if I bring this up."
Uh
But
huh.
he didn't feel well. He's like, felt a little off. And he says, I think I'm just going to go lie down. And he went to take a nap and died
Oh man.
after a workout. And that was the end. Of John Alvin, a great movie poster artist. And
That's
Well,
sad.
he did Blade Runner, and he did Mel Brooks's Blazing Saddles poster.
Well,
Um,
see, those are indelible posters, man. I'll never forget those posters.
oh, yeah. And he was a really sweet guy, really nice. So is Drew Struzan. I know both of them. I know Drew very well, him and his wife, Dylan. And
Mhm.
I feel blessed every day to have those people in my life because we all know that life is finite.
It is, and that made me realize it right there. I mean, yeah, you hear it
You
all the
could have,
time.
that could have been the end for you. And I'm glad it wasn't because, hey, now you're in our life. Case in
Well,
mind.
so thank you. Well, if she had gotten home an hour later, I'd be dead. There's no way. I was already close to death as it was. And she
I'm
got
glad
caught in
she did.
traffic.
I'm glad she did,
I mean,
man.
it was just like everything happens for a reason. And so it took me 2 months to um to even use a walker. You know,
Wow.
Because of
and
being able to even form a grip, I bet.
oh yeah, I was exercising 3 hours a day while I was in rehab. Just like everything, and just trying to get my body back in order again. And I was grateful that I was making progress. I mean, people are so bored with quarantine now. Well, yeah, imagine 2 months in the hospital and you can't walk. You know, there's nothing compared to
Oh
what
yeah,
that
I
experience was
feel you.
like.
I feel for you,
I
brother.
mean, it was.
I am. All I know is I'm glad you're here,
Thank you.
and you have a really great following on
Oh
Facebook.
yeah, I'm very grateful for that, and really thank you for your support and to
Well,
everybody who.
I'm trying to remember. Keith, did you get me onto Mikey, or did I get you onto Mikey?
I think you gotten me onto Mikey, but I mean, I had seen some of your stuff, and I was just blown away by
Yeah,
just
I think I wrote something like, "Hey, you got to check this asshole out. He's really cool." I, by the way, I'm the king of the backhanded compliment.
Well, it started with the Spider-Man thing, and I did not know that would make such an impact. It was completely
Well, I love the
unintentional.
fact that you were writing about stuff that he and I were talking about on our show.
Yeah, yeah,
And you were confirming the shit that we said was going on.
yeah. I remember
And
you were telling me that. I thought, well, I'm so cool that you guys are on the same path that I was on. You know.
well, I owe a lot to Keith in that department because I just I'm just a nerd and I have a loud mouth. Uh, Keith is
no,
the
it, it,
human
it,
encyclopedia.
I know a lot of useless stuff, but
Well,
I think
let me tell you the
between
story behind the story.
yeah,
So that night, I got a bunch of text messages saying, "Hey, this story is going to hit the media tomorrow about Sony pulling Spider-Man out of the MCU. You know, do you want to run with this, or what do you want to do with it?" And I got this like late at night, and I'm like, "Is there any credibility to this?" I said, "This sounds like foolish. I mean, even Sony's not that stupid." And he goes, "Yeah, no, I mean it's true. They really are going to pull out of it." And I said, "That sounds like a threat more than them actually doing it. But let me talk to my own sources and see if there's any like credibility to this." I didn't want to run it without seeing if it was really true or not. And I mean, if it was, it was. I would say it on my Facebook, and my following was nice back then. I mean, but it was nowhere near where it is now. Um, so I texted some people late at night, and I said, "Is this true?" And I got a couple of texts back saying, I don't know about this." And some people were angry, like, "Hey, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. What are you doing?" This one guy who has helped me in the past. I believe it was Civil War with Spider-Man. That was the intel they gave me. He said, "Call me tomorrow afternoon. I'll give you all the details." So I called him, and he said, "It's just a threat. Um, they're still working things through.
mhm.
Sony's basically playing the media right now. They want to get the people on their side. They want to get the better of this deal with Disney, and they feel that if they put this information out there, that Disney will cave in, that Sony will get a better part of the new agreement. But the deal is still. I mean, it's going to happen. He's not going to leave the MCU." I said, "Well, okay, that's relief." So I went on Facebook posting this, dude. I had no idea what kind of impact this would have, right? I'm seeing all this negativity online. Everybody's saying it's done, it's gone, forget about it. Like 10 reasons why Spider-Man is leaving the MCU and all this other bullshit, right? So I post this on my Facebook, and I made it public because I have been scooping since 015, 013 privately. Just a small group of friends. I had no intention of turning this into a career. But this one I felt it was too big of a story, for me to keep it private. So I just posted it and I said, don't worry about it. He's not leaving the MCU. Within an hour, I looked at the post. It was already beyond like 400 likes. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. And the shares were off the chain, dude. And oh my God, what's happening with this? I'm just like, who am I? I'm just posting this to calm everybody down and with the truth. I was just so annoyed by all the bogusness going around, all the rage bait and everything, that I had to put this out there. What happened was somebody on Reddit, I believe, or one of those things, did some checking on my Facebook and realized I have been scooping for years. Discovered that, and I never got credit for this one. In 2015, I was the one who scooped the Disney Fox deal. Long before it happened, I said they were in talks, and at the time they kept denying it, and I stuck with it. I never wavered on it. I said, Disney is going to get those Fox properties back. And in 2015, I gave it to Pete's Basement YouTube channel. Hey, could you, put this news out there that Disney and Fox are talking? And dude, it went nowhere. I mean, Pete's Basement, broadcasted for me, but I had no following, no pull. So the story was out there, but nobody picked it up. Because of the Spider-Man post, all of a sudden it got revived. Like, hey, this guy got that right. And they discovered that I got Black Panther and Civil War right, that I got the original Spider-Man deal right. And they're saying this guy has a kind of a secret track record. He's legit. And when that stuff came out, my post became more popular because I wasn't some anonymous voice on Facebook putting this out that, hey, this guy's a real insider. And overnight, man, that story was carried throughout the world. My little Facebook post. And that started off everything that's going on right now. And just one by one, I guess, climbed that ladder of popularity, and was completely unintentional. And to go from, recovering from a stroke to this is really surreal.
Yeah,
I can
killing
bet.
it, man. You are killing it. I'll tell you.
Thank you. And really, it's because of the people who, like the YouTube channels, such as yourself, who've been carrying my scoops. And, within a month after that, I was in Looper, I was in The Nerdist. All these huge channels were picking up my stories. Comicbook.com, comicbookmovie.com, which I've written for in the past, covered my stories, and it hit like nuclear a few months later when I made the front page of Yahoo.com. I could not believe it. Like, how did I go from rehab to being on the front page of Yahoo? Just like blew my
It was
mind.
the stroke, man.
Yeah, right.
Changed everything.
It's the goose
Some
that
kind of
laid the
mutant
golden
power,
egg.
Yeah, some kind of mutant power, right?
Well, hey, let's move into that sport scoop territory. What do we want to start with? Do we want to start with Spider-Man, Batman, or Black Adam?
Let's start with Batman. Let's get all the DC ones out of the way because Spider-Man is gonna eclipse everything. I think it always does.
Well, there we go. I put up a graphic for Batman with that cool photo of Robert Pattinson in the
Yeah,
mask.
so I mentioned in our Geekosity group today that The Rock has tremendous pull at DC Films right now.
I kind of figured.
More than J.J. Abrams. And I know J.J. got all the attention for that huge deal he signed with Warner. But I just don't have much faith in him. Not faith in him personally. I think he'll do a good job.
You're preaching to the choir here because we are not big fans of JJ because
Yeah.
he is pretty much destroyed right now two intellectual properties, Star Wars and
Yeah.
Star Trek. And
Well,
so
yeah,
our
we
joke
love
is
him.
he's not happy unless he's shitting in someone's salad.
Well, the thing is, he is going to prioritize his own stuff, you know, and honestly, I think that's where he does his best stuff, or his own project. Like Person of Interest was a great show.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
Oh
And
yeah.
I think that's far better than any of the Star Wars or Star Trek stuff. I mean,
I think that
Mhm.
Jonathan Nolan, had a lot to do with
oh
that
yeah,
show.
yeah, definitely, yep.
One of
Well,
our producers, Craig, worked on that show. He was the effects
Oh
guy.
really? Oh man, I saw every episode. I fucking love that show.
Ditto. I've watched many
Brilliant.
multiple times. And
I
Craig, my
I think
childhood friend, was the FX guy for that show.
Oh really? That's
I think
incredible.
I
But
think Jonathan Nolan and him are going to have a few more things that they're going to want to do
introduce
together.
the fans expect.
Right.
I know he's doing Justice League Dark, but that's a TV show. You know, it's not even a film. Um, but The Rock is the one that has the most passion for this material, and he really wants to have a cohesive DC universe.
Well, we definitely want to get more into The Rock, but
Yeah,
what's going on with Batman?
and the Rock will affect Batman this way because initially, Matt Reeves, the director of the Batman trilogy coming up, he did not want this to be part of the DCEU. He wanted to do his own little, play in his own sandbox, as they say, right?
Right. Like the
And I
Joker.
think, yeah, and I think much of this probably has to do with a lot of the Zack Snyder stuff that he doesn't want to be a part of. And a lot of the executives at Warner Brothers and now AT&T, um, they saw the failures of Dawn of Justice and Justice League as humongous disappointments. I mean, those were supposed to put the DCEU on the level of the MCU, and it didn't happen. And they lost money on those projects. So when Matt Reeves said, "I don't want this to be part of a larger cinematic universe," they said, "Fine, that's okay with us because last time we did this, it didn't do too well. When Christopher Nolan had his Batman films, they weren't attached to anything, and they were huge, right?
Right. Yeah.
But The Rock is influencing, the head honchos at Warner Brothers, and so it's looking like the Batman movies coming up will be in the DCEU, and the DCEU is going to be rebooted, softly rebooted.
Yeah,
And
because they're
from
going
what
to keep Wonder Woman and Aquaman. They work.
yeah, they're gonna keep what works and throw away everything that didn't work. you know, or at least make them better. And so the Batman was originally gonna be like Joker, like its own little place, outside the DCEU. But from what I'm hearing, that's no longer the case. That the film is getting retooled to fit into this new DCEU. So how are they going to reboot this? I think has everything to do with Flashpoint. And they haven't fired Ezra Miller yet for what the video footage that came out of him, allegedly assaulting a fan. They've been really quiet about this, and
Mhm.
it's important the Flashpoint film comes out because that's really going to be the film that will reboot the franchise in like the DCEU as a whole. And The Rock will be a large part of this.
Do you think that they're gonna?
Lead into the Batman, being part of this new DCEU. So you could have later on Robert Pattinson meet Wonder Woman and Aquaman. And so when you start hearing about the Batman film now, look at it in a different way, because most likely it will not be a standalone franchise anymore. That this is part of a much greater plan. And
Do you think that they'll be using Flashpoint to introduce any more new characters?
which involves Black Adam.
And let's talk about that one, because what
Yeah.
you told me privately was really exciting, because you and I both, all of us know that The Rock's manager is his wife, who also happens to be Henry Cavill's manager.
Yep.
So let's go, baby.
So there has been much talk on whether or not, Cavill is gone. And at some point he was. But The Rock is really putting pressure on Warner Brothers to bring him back as Superman. And I'm 100% confident now that will happen.
Yeah, baby.
He will like Superman. And not only that, but they have started discussions, and not negotiations yet, but discussions on where to take this. Because Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice failed for many reasons, and I think the biggest one why it didn't work, commercially and critically, was that you're having characters fight without really having established their friendship yet.
Yep.
When Civil War happened, it was already established. It was already established that Captain America and Iron Man were friends.
Yep.
So it had a lot of emotional power when those two were fighting. Whereas Batman vs Superman is like, oh, let's go ahead and have them fight. It's like, but the emotional.
Well, that's the reason why it was important to get rid of a lot of those executives that made the decision that they should move forward with it.
Well, exactly.
Superman and Batman.
Well, Keith was saying that it was so important to get rid of some of those executives at Warner, because anybody who knows anything about films like, the DC
Man of Steel
films, it knows that almost everything that went wrong was due to studio interference.
Yeah, because Man of Steel 2 was really what.
There were a couple of crossover films they want to do in the future. Now, regarding when this will happen, I don't know. They want to do, 3 Batman films, solo films, with Matt Reeves. But they're already thinking about the future on having let's call him Battinson, right? Appear elsewhere. And there are 2 projects I've heard that is exclusive to you guys. I've never scooped this before. One of them is a world's finest movie.
Oh,
yes!
Yeah, that's kind of a huge story, right? with Cavill and Pattinson.
Wow.
And to establish their friendship. So it'll be a total opposite of Dawn of Justice, where you have these two characters coming together, not as people angry with one another, but a real superhero team up between DC's two biggest characters.
Wow. That is
And
such an exciting idea to me.
exactly, and it's comic books. I mean, it's what generations of comic book readers loved was those two and their friendship together.
Yep.
And that was completely missing from Dawn of Justice. And
Yeah, it made it too overly adversarial.
yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Those are perfect words. Perfect words.
Well, it's because I'm a smart dude.
There you are. And
Well, and
my other DC scoop is this: The Rock is a huge fan of Jeff Johns and David Goyer's Justice Society of America run from the early 00s. He's a huge, huge fan. That's when The Rock really got into Black Adam. It's been widely reported that the JSA will appear in Black Adam.
yes,
What hasn't been reported yet, to my knowledge, is that The Rock wants to do a JSA film or a series of JSA movies that'll be loosely adapted from those comics.
Justice Society of America.
And it gets better because The Rock is thinking, because The Rock loves the MCU. I mean, he loves DC Comics, but he loves the MCU. He loves what kind of legacy that can leave for an actor. Look at Robert Downey Jr., his legacy now because of Iron Man, the Avengers, and Endgame, and all these things. The Rock is longing for that. He wants that. And he believes that it's achievable. They can do it. They have the characters to do it. They just didn't have the right creative teams or directions to do it. So
I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to say what you're telling us is that The Rock is a major force for the DCEU.
he is. I mean, he doesn't have the title that Kevin Feige has, but his influence is almost as powerful right now. I mean, The Rock is a box office force of nature. You know that.
Oh yeah, I'm a big fan. Been a fan since the '90s. So
Well,
yeah,
and so what The Rock wants to do is, okay, so how can we compete with Infinity War and Endgame? How can we do this? What can we do on that level? So here's what they've been discussing. You remember as a kid, every summer, reading Justice League of America comics in the summer during the 80s, 70s.
Mm-hmm.
What happened during the summer? They have the annual Justice Society team-ups.
Oh
yes.
yeah.
So what The Rock wants to do is to have a film that'll have the JSA meet the JLA.
Yes.
And you have your MCU level epic film right there. So if you're looking at in the future what's going to be the endgame level epic of a DCEU, you're looking at a JLA JSA film.
Man, this is. I'm sorry, I don't show excitement much on my face. If you were to look at me right now, you'd think, God, Gerry doesn't care about this shit. But I've got goosebumps from this discussion. That's where it shows up. Is when I get excited, I get goosebumps, and I have goosebumps right now.
And this is an exclusive for your channel here. I have not dropped this before. So today will be May 23, my birthday when this comes out. And you guys will be the first to broadcast this news.
And technically, it's kind of a birthday to me because my birthday is 4 days before yours.
Well, there you go. See? How awesome is that?
Yeah, I'm Taurus. You're the Gemini.
Man, Gemini's real, man.
So, holy crap, dude! I don't know how we can top this off, but I got a feeling that this next bit's going to top it off when we start talking about, oh, let me pull that screen up. There it is. Spider-Man.
Okay, just give me a minute. Okay, I'll be right back. Just hold on. Okay, I'll be right back.
Okay.
We'll fill that time. I mean, look. The very fact that The Rock has taken over as far as Warner Brothers is concerned, there was definitely a vacuum. And he had been reported to have been meeting with the MCU and Kevin Feige a few years back. I'm thinking his mind is going, look, I'm a man of a certain age. I can't keep doing a lot of the physical stuff, but comic books provide the perfect opportunity to continue to make the kinds of films that would allow him to dominate the box office. And while he is a big MCU fan, his ability to be able to use his rock-like ability to bring back the DCEU would be his greatest achievement. And if he can make it work and bring in, I mean, the people that he knows personally, he could help to rebuild the DCEU in such a way. I think the next big thing would be Green Lantern at this point.
Well, we know that, what is it, Jeff Johns is doing the TV series.
Yeah, but I think what's going to happen is they're going to try to keep a lot of stuff separate, which is a good idea because there's too many moving parts to keep everything going the same way.
Mikey is back.
So, let's get ready for Spider-Man.
Spider-Man, Spider-Man.
Okay, two things. I have two Spider-Man scoops for you. Number one. Now, when I heard that the title of Venom 2 was Let There Be Carnage, I could not stop, poking fun at it.
Oh, I did too on your page.
like what a cornball title. I mean, I understand if it was a more of a comedic film, but when you think of Carnage and Venom, you don't think of a silly film title like that. And I was corrected by my insiders who told me that, you know what, Kevin Feige is actually okay with the title. And apparently, it's Sony's attempt to mimic the style of upcoming Marvel Studios movies with the longer titles. And it may not have been a great attempt at it, but they said that the reason why people may be disappointed was because Maximum Carnage just sounds better. And a title taken from, a series of Marvel comics, why are they calling it Let There Be Carnage?
Right, Keith? I tried to get that out of you the other day.
Yeah.
And so
Maximum Carnage.
I was assuming that, Feige didn't like the title, but actually, no, he's actually okay with it. And here's why.
Here it comes. Here it comes.
So, okay, so it does in some way fit the style of upcoming Marvel Studios titles, but they're saving Maximum Carnage for what's going to come after. And apparently, Maximum Carnage is going to follow Let There Be Carnage. And it will be the film which will have Spider-Man meeting both characters. Wow. And not only that, but I've been told that Spider-Man will have the black outfit on.
And that's not just the black suit, it's the symbiotic suit.
Yep.
Yes, he will have it.
So this shit's gotten real. And
oh yeah.
Again, goosebumps are crazy all over my arm right now just talking about this.
Yeah, I mean, and that film will be Maximum Carnage. And Kevin Feige is going to produce it, from what I've been told. So it will be an MCU film.
Outstanding news right there, my friend.
Yeah, and
That is
so
outstanding.
Fantastic.
and it gets better.
Oh, there's more?
There's more. My second Spider-Man scoop. I scooped a few months ago that there's going to be an Into the Spider-Verse live-action film. They've been talking about this for months now. It's still in the planning stages. No writing has been done yet. No negotiations have been done yet. But they've been brainstorming this for months now. And basically it's this. Into the Spider-Verse, and it might not even be called that, and it won't be an adaptation of the animated film, but have maybe the same title. This is where, well, okay, I have to phrase this very carefully, because other shows are going to have the other scoops based on this. It's a scoop that keeps on giving, right? But here's an exclusive to your channel. This film, again, this will be an MCU film. The villains for this film are being planned to be the Sinister Six. So you're finally going to see the Sinister Six, but they're not just fighting Holland. Because Holland by himself can't take on all these guys by himself. And you're going to have, Maguire and Garfield
Yes.
in this film versus the Sinister Six.
Yes.
And the best news of all of this is that
Better than that?
Feige will be involved in the production of the film.
He's going to have to be. He's going to have to be because
Yeah.
I've suspected that we were going to get a hint of that with Sam Raimi's involvement.
Yep. And so they really want Raimi to direct this film.
Hell yes.
And most likely, I'm 99.9% sure he will be. Because this will be his way of saying goodbye to his legacy.
Yeah, get to finish what he started, correct?
Exactly.
Yep.
Because he didn't get a chance to do that. I mean, Spider-Man 3 was rushed.
It was rushed, and he was forced to add a character that he didn't want in there, that he didn't like or know.
Exactly. And this is a way for him to finally say, okay, here's my final word on Spider-Man. And what a perfect project to do it with, you know? And to have, the Sinister Six in there as a primary villain.
Finally,
right? I mean, after all the false starts,
yep.
And this is why Sony canceled their Sinister Six movie, because they're planning it for this.
Good.
So you're going to see Michael Keaton as a Vulture, but he'll be fighting Holland, Garfield, and Maguire. I mean, how badass is that?
That's
wow,
dude. That I'm nerdgasming everywhere right now. It's just all over the place. Yeah, Keith's getting goosebumps too. He's showing them. It's like that's awesome. I'm so glad we did this today, Mikey.
Yeah.
Well, basically, happy birthday.
Thank you so much, and thank you guys for having me on today. And these are exclusives to your channel, and hope as many people subscribe to your channel as possible and get the word out, because you guys do great work. You guys really do.
Thanks, man. And we want to have you on more often. And I like the idea that you had of doing a show together, the three of us, something separate.
Yeah.
Because one, we love talking to you, and
likewise.
And we got to get you back on the interweb with a camera so we can actually chat like we're in the same room, pretend like we're in the same room.
One day we can,
Yeah. But anyway, Mikey, thanks for coming on the show. Some
Thank you.
great scoops. Oh my God, I'm so excited. And with that, happy birthday. And and to all of our followers, hey man, thanks for watching the show. And most of all, get off our lawn.
Hey guys, thanks for watching Pop Culture Minefield. If you've enjoyed the show, please remember to like and subscribe, and don't forget to hit the bell icon. Remember, you can find us at Pop Culture Minefield on both Facebook and Instagram. Thank you again.